Pajero! Oh, you beauty! What a head, son! What a head!
Hello and welcome back to Onto the Ball. We're back for another blockbuster edition to talk about the weekend's football, and we've got a very special guest with us today. We've got Dan from Two Blues podcast. He's joining me, Scott Nichol, and Travis Morgan, and James OB is back as well. Dan, it's a real pleasure to have you. I've been promising I'm going to come on yours and critique the Liverpool review that you've done. I'm sure OB might want to watch it as well now that I was telling him that you've got a healthy hatred for Liverpool and their fans. So that'll be a good watch back. But we've got loads to go through. We are reviewing the weekend. Manchester United picked up the second silverware of the season. What's the first? I can see Trav thinking the Charity Shield, of course.
I already know what you're going to say. I knew that was coming already.
So that's Liverpool and Man United scooped one bit of silverware each. And then we're going to go through probably briefly OB, Crystal Palace 0, Liverpool 0. And then we're going to head right into the nitty gritty of Spurs 2, Chelsea 0. Dan's already shaking his head. He's firmly, I don't want to give any spoilers, but he's firmly Graham Potter out. So we're going to get on to that. Lads, how you doing? Is okay? We're going to get straight into it.
Yeah, I'm good.
So,
Travis,
Let's do it.
It'd be rude not to start with you and Manchester United. Okay, we've got to give you props. The League Cup, Eric Ten Hag. He's come in. You're delighted with him. According to your Twitter, according to the WhatsApp group messages anyway. Could it have gone much better than this? Still in all four competitions. First one in the bag, the League Cup. What did you think of the game?
Just firstly, from what you said, I don't think it could be going much better than what it is at the moment. In terms of the game itself, I think Newcastle actually started the game better than us, to be fair. I think there might have been a few nerves because obviously the pressure was all on United to win the game. Newcastle haven't been in good form. They've had quite a lot of draws quite recently. And everybody expected Man U to win and probably win comfortably as well. Newcastle aren't a team that score many goals. So the onus was on Manchester United to take the game to Newcastle. But I actually thought we started the game quite nervy. I think they had a few chances where the ball was flashing across the box, a few nearly moments. But Newcastle are one of those teams a lot of this season that have like huffed and puffed. They've not really got a main sort of goal scorer in their team. I know Callum Wilson's chipped in with a few, but Isak struggled with injury. St. Max don't really score a lot of goals, and they've just bought Anthony Gordon in January, so there's not a lot of goals in their team. I think once we took the lead through Casemiro, then I think we sort of grew in confidence towards the end of the first half. Rashford got the second goal really quickly, and then you thought it could go on to be 3 and 4. Karius made actually a couple of good saves. I thought he did okay. I think he could have done a little bit better on the Rashford goal, to be honest with you. But
Just a correction there, Trav. Rashford didn't score the goal. It was an own goal, mate.
No, it's been credited to Rashford now. It's gone back to Rashford.
Hey, how could it be? It was going wide. The dubious goal committee's got to be looking at that. It was going wide. He actually completely missed it. I'm not raging. He missed the shot. It was going wide, surely.
When was it credited to him, Trav?
Yeah,
early this morning. Early this morning. It's been credited to Rashford. No.
it took them all night.
What's that?
It took them all night to decide.
Yeah, no, it's silly, really. Exactly. It's stupid, mate. But yeah, it has been officially credited to Marcus Rashford now. So, So once we took a 2-0 lead, the second half, again, Newcastle came. De Gea made a couple of saves, but we weren't under really any great pressure. Again, huffing and puffing without all bark, no bite. I think we saw the game out well. We made the substitutions, bringing on Sabot on McTominay, and I thought we looked quite comfortable. We just played on the break for the last 15 minutes, got Rashford in the channel, and I think we should have wrapped the game up on a couple of occasions. I know Bruno went clean through, should have squared it straight through to Sancho. Rashford had a little pot shot from about 20 yards as well, which Karius made quite a smart save from. So after the first goal, I thought it was pretty routine and pretty comfortable, and another clean sheet for the Reds.
And Harry Maguire come on, didn't he?
Yeah, he came on towards the end. I think that was Ten Hag's way of saying, "You're the club captain. We've got to pay you respect in some way." I don't, I don't think he had any sort of impact on the game or anything like that. I think there was only like a couple of minutes to go, but it was nice to just see him come on and lift the trophy with Bruno.
Did he grab the armband off Bruno?
Yeah, I think he came on for Bruno, if I remember correctly. Bruno came off at the end. But yeah, he certainly had the armband on when he lifted the cup anyway. He couldn't wait to do it as well. Just a little shit house, but he loved it. But
Like,
yeah.
Poor John Terry, but at least he got the
in the full kit.
Yeah, exactly. Full kit wanker, mate. But yeah, it was good. Like I said, it was long overdue. It's been 6 years since we'd won anything. So it's good to get off to a good start on Eric Ten Hag's watch. So hopefully we can add more this season. Like I said, we're in all the competitions now. It'd be interesting to see what sort of draw that we get if we manage to get through West Ham on Wednesday. Because like you said, out of the big teams that are left, Arsenal are out, Liverpool are out of the competition. So I think there's only really Man City sort of who could potentially cause us much danger with the remaining teams. So I think it's going to be an interesting finish to the season.
Are Arsenal still in it?
No, and Man City knocked them out.
Oh, of course they did, yeah.
Yeah.
Dan,
So
did you watch
away
it? Did you watch the League Cup final?
I only caught the second half. I saw the goals, which obviously, yeah, as Obi rightly said, second one was an own goal. Not sure how Rashford got claim with that, but English stat padding will go with there. But yeah, no, second half of it, yeah, it wasn't too. I don't think Newcastle, like Trav said, have anything that is particularly dangerous, particularly when you're 2-0 down in a League Cup final. You know, they didn't really have they didn't, regardless of the crowd behind them, they didn't have an opportunity or have anyone to have a real target man to pull them through and to look for in those situations. And it didn't really create many chances, and anything that there was a half chance rather than clear cut. Like Trav said, Isak was someone that we were very excited to see at the start of the season, but particularly after his debut, took Liverpool to the shops, if I remember rightly. But yeah, very, Almiron seems to have lost his momentum a little bit. Joelinton obviously is just not going to make it. And I personally am not an advocate of Anthony Gordon. I'm not a fan of him. Didn't want him at Chelsea, and I don't really see him doing particularly well at Newcastle.
Has he been playing? Has Anthony Gordon been playing?
Not really.
He was on the bench.
Coming on the sub. Yeah, on the sub.
Yeah,
OB,
coming off.
Did you watch it? I take it you watched it.
Yeah, I watched the game. I mean, from my perspective, I expected that outcome. We talked about this earlier, Scott, but I expected that outcome simply because two things. One, if we can turn them over at St James's Park, they're not going to be any bloody good the way we're playing this season. And we turned them over quite easily. I mean, they actually played better when they went down to 10 men and they got riled up. But we were tearing them apart, and I expected United to be able to wear them down and take the chances and make the most of it. I thought Ten Hag got his tactics absolutely right. And what I'd also say is that the Glazers also got their tactics right by giving everybody a scarf that wasn't green and gold and getting them to swing it about. So well played for them. They're clearly staying, aren't they? Glazers in.
That we're staying gift from the Glazers to all the fans to thank them for the last
absolutely.
17 years they've owned them.
He was there. He looked really excited, looked really happy. I don't know why they'd turn up if they were selling the club. So there must be it's a bit of a strange one, that. But no, in a serious note, Ten Hag got it right. He played the right type of game. Swapped the fullback at half time when he was struggling and brought Wan-Bissaka on, and I think that solidified things a little bit in the second half because there was some chances coming from down that side, but Wan-Bissaka done well in the second half, and I think that was the main tactical move that he needed to make. I do think Casemiro was an absolute linchpin for that team. The form he's in is absolutely fantastic, and it shows. The confidence all around the team is showing. I'd just be interested to see what they do now for the rest of the season. He says through gritted teeth.
Yeah, hopefully they burn right out. Dan, a baptism of fire onto the ball for you. I'm going to put you right on the spot. Are Man United back?
Unfortunately, yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, I think Ten Hag is the right man. It looks like he's got the players working as a unit. He's got Rashford firing, as he needs someone up there as a number 9. Wout Weghorst is not going to be a long-term number 9 for them. Martial is obviously, not consistent enough at the moment as well, and has struggled with injury. So it's good to have Rashford firing, but he's got, like OB said, Casemiro in there, fantastic buy. I think Varane, fantastic buy. They've made some superb investments in core areas of the team. Lisandro Martinez, again, hate to admit it, but he looks like another fantastic centre-back. He's, adapted to the Premier League very quickly and very well. They look to have formed a very strong basis. And as long as De Gea, keeps his act together and doesn't, make the, we all know De Gea loves to make a mistake or two. As long as he keeps those out of his game, they've got a fairly solid, with Luke Shaw as well, is probably in arguably the best form of his life. And with Dalot and Wan-Bissaka competing for that right back, I think it's a very solid foundation of the team to build on.
Travis, I'm getting a little bit sick of Ten Hag not putting a foot wrong. As Obi says, I've got to give him credit where it's due. Half-time against Barca, half-time against Newcastle. He can't put a foot wrong.
Well, we looked at the fixtures before and we said it was going to be a pivotal period for United over the next couple of weeks. We said Leicester at home, then straight into Barcelona, 3 days later into the cup final. And we've come through all of those games and we've won them all. Like 2 legs against Barcelona. We drew the first leg, we beat Leicester, and we won the cup final. So I think, like we were discussing in the preview for the Newcastle game, OB said that if we played a lot of the strongest team against Barcelona and we lost the cup final, that we would rue that and we would regret that. And we've come through it. So it's not just what's happening on the pitch as well. It's the way that we're managing the squad off it as well. Like the recuperation, the recovery's obviously been great. We're not getting that many injuries. Like obviously the suspensions we had to Casemiro, Sabitzer was banned in Europe, Martinez was banned in Europe, but they've come back in now. So apart from Eriksen, now players are starting to come back. So like you said, I think everything's just going right for us at the moment. There will obviously be periods. We go to Anfield this week as well, which is obviously always a tough game for Man United, no matter what the form's like. So there's going to be bumps in the road, but like you said, there's not much more we can do than what we're doing at the moment. And the most important thing is the wins just breathe confidence. Everybody's flying at the moment. Even if people are coming on for like 15, 20 minutes at the end of games, everybody's hungry. Everybody wants to start games, and it's infectious.
How much did the battle between Ten Hag and Ronaldo win over the rest of the squad, do you think? Because that must have been what it was. He must have been thinking, get out of this club. I'm the boss. You're gone. And for him to do that with Ronaldo, it must have sent shockwaves through the rest of the squad, thinking, I ain't going to mess with Ten Hag.
I think what was more telling was the fact that the club backed his decision on it. Whether he had full power over the decision remains to be seen. But obviously, like I said, a lot of United's recruitment in terms of their operation has been very commercially driven before Ten Hag came. Like I said, we've always signed the Cavani's, the Di Marias, just the names. I think this is the first time in a while that you could tell that the recruitment wasn't just about names, because everybody questioned it. A lot of them said that the signings are from the Eredivisie. Will they fit into the Premier League? The likes of Anthony Martinez, Lisandro Martinez, Eriksen on a free. Was he old? Was he washed up? Everyone was criticising a lot of the signings before they were made. I think Casemiro was the only one of note who you thought, or he was proven quality and he should fit into the Premier League, no problem. So I think you've got to give credit also to like sort of John Murtough, because this is the first time he's been in this role over Ed Woodward. And he was the one that was driving a lot of the recruitment before and the plan and the operation. So it has changed quite a bit in terms of that dynamic. So again, I think we just need another summer going forward in terms of the Ronaldo thing. I think when he did the interview with Pears, we had a decision to make as a club, because obviously he sold a lot of shirts. He made the club a lot of money. We could have just said, right, discipline him, keep him in and around the team, make some more money. But we were strong. Ten Hag said, no, he's crossed the line. He needs to go. The club's backed his decision. And I think, like you said, that's paid dividends now, and everybody knows who sort of rules the roost.
Fair play. Manchester United, Dan says they're back. Obi has previously said they're back, and I fear they're back. And I think the most scary thing for me, you said it in the last podcast, is, well, Trav confirmed it. They're going to spend another 250 million in the summer, aren't they, on Osimhen or Harry Kane or another. So
I think we'll go big again, to be fair. Yeah, I do. I think we'll get a partner for Casemiro. I think we'll definitely get a top-class striker. I think we'll get a utility defender, like one of the centre-halves will go, and I think we'll get somebody who can play centre-half and a full-back, similar to your boy Ivanovic back in the day. That's what I'd like to see at United, that type of player.
No, I would never see that type of player again, unfortunately.
They're a dying breed, aren't they?
Oh, yeah, they are, particularly in this modern era of VAR. Oh, that is rude. But that's
right.
Yeah.
That sets us nicely onto Chelsea.
Oh,
Dan,
here we go.
We're going to get into it.
It's been good to have you. It's been good to be on here.
Dan, I've got a couple of questions for you. I think I'm going to start off with, how long had Potter been in the job before you thought he's not the right guy and I want him gone? Was it a month, couple of months? At what point did you think, I've give up on him, he's got to go?
Don't forget to say before he came.
I mean, I was never sold on him. I was never sold on the idea. Obviously, Chums and I both wanted Tuchel to stay with all of our heart. You know, Tuchel had a real emotional connection with the fans that I don't think can be and will ever be replicated by Graham Potter. The manner in which he was brought in, obviously, you know, gives him some loyalty in terms of the club have to give him an allowance. They spend so much money on him. They can't just bid him off straight away. But from a fan standpoint, that doesn't matter. And for me, I mean, it was the West Ham game, I think, where I lost all faith. For 45 minutes, it looked like a different team. You know, it was the first time I think we'd seen Enzo Fernandez, João Felix together. It looked like, you know, Mudryk, it looked like it was going to be the start of something new, and it just fell flat. It lasted 45 minutes, as does the majority of Chelsea's performances these days. And that was when, you know, I really, really started to question and scrutinise his decision-making, particularly with substitutions, his reliance on Gallagher, Mount, Ziyech, the same players, Havertz, the same ineffective team in different ways and in different methods, and it's not working. And I don't know whether he's unable to communicate his method of playing over to the players, or I don't know whether the players aren't able to understand it. But whatever we're seeing is not. There is no plan in place. There is too much change going on, for one. He is changing the team around too much. For one example, I don't know why Koulibaly, he's giving Koulibaly an opportunity. He's proven that Badiashile is a better centre-back, particularly in that left centre-back side alongside Thiago Silva. I don't understand why now we have a stable-ish back four with Chilwell and James back. He's trying to switch it up again and put in another liability of a centre-back in. Again, Gallagher and Mount are two players that I've completely lost faith with at Chelsea as well.
Liverpool are linked to both.
Oh, please take them, Scott, please. 20 mil for both. 20 mil for both. You can have them, please. Honestly. But no, yeah, Potter has just reinforced in the last every single game since the West Ham game. I've kind of, it's obviously decreased every single time, but I've kind of gone, look, we can win this game. We've got another chance. The team looks all right. We can do it. And then it's the same flat performance. No goals again. You know, I think we've scored one goal in the last 77 shots, which is appalling. So, I don't know why we are sticking with the same. Well, what did Einstein say? It was madness is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, and that's what Graham Potter's doing at the moment. And yeah, he's not helping himself by his responses to the media and how he's digging up.
He's come out with some real odd comments recently, hasn't he? They almost admitting defeat and admitting that he's going to get sacked soon. I found it really odd.
Yeah, that was the one that just reiterated to me and to a lot of the fans. I think that you're clearly not, you don't feel you are suited to this position. You are already, and like you said, you've already accepted defeat. You're not going out there trying to save your job. So
turn it around.
Why should we believe in you? We really needed at the weekend that Spurs performance. We needed a Tuchel Conte moment. We needed to see some passion. We needed to see him celebrate, see him gesticulating. But you never see him on the sideline speaking to players, and it really frustrates you as a fan when you think that you care more than the manager does. When obviously at the end of the day, it's such a coveted and such a highly paid and sought after job.
Crazy. Dan, I watched your last podcast. And you and Chums went in on him for Graham Potter a good 10 minutes. And then you digressed a little bit. And you said, I do feel a bit of sympathy for Graham Potter. You've done a bit of an about turn. Is that sympathy down to this influx of all these players coming in? I mean, surely we've mentioned it in our podcast. He must turn up to training with all these new players, all different positions, try to keep them all happy. Still try to find his own rhythm of play, still try to find the best positions for all of them. Surely that sympathy is stretched a bit to be like, who's running the show? Do you think he's getting told even who to play?
I'm not 100% sure ever what's going on behind the scenes at Chelsea. Todd Boehly seems like a very, very odd character. He seems very, very hands-on. There are, quite a lot of photos going out of him at the training ground, talks of crisis meetings at the, at Cobham, in the last week. But I mean, the sympathy kind of comes from, I think it's a place of understanding in that he is, I do understand that, number one, he is out of his depth as the Brighton manager. He's never been in a European competition, had never played a European game. So to be thrust into that on his first game as Chelsea boss and to be thrust into the job, 22 million pounds as a manager, he didn't choose that price tag. He's not the one that has to bear that responsibility or wants to bear that responsibility on his shoulders, but he has to, I understand, particularly with 8 players coming, I think it was, into the main squad, all of whom need obviously time to adapt individually. It was never going to be an easy situation. But unfortunately, a job like Chelsea doesn't allow for that. So while you do have an element of understanding and sympathy for him, we've given him too many chances. There has to be some progression and some signs that we are working on and we are making progress. But just touching on, the managing the squad. I mean, I saw a report today that apparently he's struggling to get his training techniques across to the squad because it's too large. So he's having to either leave some players out or choose train players individually. And it's that to me is bizarre that, you can't just pair people off. And
that sounds crazy.
Extra pair. But I mean, maybe you can only do an exercise with a certain amount of people or whatever he's doing. It's clearly not working and he's having difficulties with the squad that he's been given.
When we first started Onto the Ball, we had an original channel that got deleted after about 4 streams, was it, Trav?
Yeah.
We were basically lacing the comments with all like the United stand, the Anfield rap. My son had done it actually, and that's illegal because we were getting some good views, but obviously it was people searching there. But anyway, we done a podcast and mentioned Graham Potter, didn't we, Trav? And we said he will not make the step up to a bigger club purely because he's not Graham Potterino. He's just like he's not a name. We haven't got that recording anymore, or I would have turned it into a short because we said that he wouldn't make this step up. But Trav, you wrote him off quite early as well, didn't you? You've said he's a dead man walking for a good couple of weeks or maybe a couple of months.
The mad thing is, he's a good coach at the wrong club. Like, Chelsea's just not the club. Like, they buy big, they buy in bulk, and they expect results pretty instantly. And I think the fans at Chelsea are trying to be patient with him. Like you said, he's had ample opportunities to show that he can take the team in a particular direction in terms of the football being played. Not even asking in terms of the results, but when you're at home to Southampton losing 1-0 and you're not seeing a performance, then you've got to be held accountable for that. Do you know what I mean? There's literally no way you can escape criticism in any way, shape, or form. You're playing bottom of the league and the team aren't even seeing you play well. Like you said, you're playing well for like spells, 20 minutes, 45 minutes, half a game. Like you've not seen one full 90-minute performance. And the biggest thing for me is like you said, the commitment, like from the manager. Like you need to see some animation. You need to see that he actually cares about potentially losing his job. Like it doesn't seem like it's on the line. He seems, like you said, he seems resigned to the fact that he knows he's not good enough. And that's an issue. Do you know what I mean? As a fan, looking on at those performances, like you said, you just need to see a little bit more. I think the timing of Tuchel sacking was just bizarre in itself. Do you know what I mean? Like
crazy, wasn't it?
They just signed him Aubameyang. It was obvious Aubameyang went because he had played with him at Dortmund. And you thought, well, yeah, they hadn't had a striker for a good 12 to 14 months. And he was that striker that they brought in. I thought, right, well, he's going to be the main striker. I know Tuchel wasn't doing great at the start of the season, but he'd got the pedigree. You would have thought that he'd had the time to be able to sort it out. But then when they sacked him and was linked with Potter, what it seemed like to me was Todd Boehly was literally just picked Potter as like sort of a flavour of the month. He was doing overachieving at Brighton. He was the one on everyone's lips, like, yeah, Potter. And I don't even think Todd Boehly even knew much about him. Do you know what I mean? It was just a strange appointment. I thought there's just no way he's going to make that step up to that club. Like, I think, no disrespect
he couldn't wait to make his first sacking as the club owner. He was overexcited.
Yeah.
But if you flip back and you look at from Potter's perspective, and this is what I would say is his standing was probably as high as it was ever going to be. He will have an agent saying to him, "Oh, a lot of clubs are interested in you," and then Chelsea make a move for him. Now, whether they've sacked Tuchel with a view to getting in Potter and gone, "We fancy this guy," and have approached you, the answer has to be yes.
I was going to say that. How can he say no? It could be once in a lifetime, couldn't it?
Immediately, he's got to back himself, or be seen to be backing himself publicly, even if deep down he's going, with Chelsea's history of turning over managers quite quick, and I know it's in a different era, but the ability to just go, this isn't going to work. Maybe has started to doubt himself, thinking, "Am I good enough at this?" Because he was comfortable at Brighton. He was overachieving. Even if they had a poor season where he finished, I don't know, 16th, you know what I mean? He would have been all right next season. You know what I mean? There'd been no problems there. Whereas Chelsea, he would have to hit the ground running. New chairman who obviously splashed some money via some interest in finances, and obviously backed him. You know what I mean? So immediately the pressure's on. You've got to deliver. And at that point, he had to say yes. So then he's in the job. He's then had a lot of money thrown at him. He's got to succeed. He's never had that type of exposure going that far afield and playing and buying players at that level. And immediately, although I do think he's made some really poor decisions, and I'm sure that's what Dan's thinking right now, he's been thrust into something that's beyond his capabilities at a point where he's not ready. You know what I mean? And the circumstances have overtaken him. And now we're seeing probably somebody who's lacking in confidence as a manager and not comfortable in his surroundings and doesn't know how to get himself out of this because he's never been in anything like it before.
Dan, do you think Potter would have the confidence to get rid of a Ronaldo?
No, not at all. He's letting Aubameyang walk all over him. So I don't understand or see how Graham Potter has any control over that dressing room. I don't feel like he is authoritative in anything he does. You know, he doesn't command the players on the pitch. That is the first thing, is communication. You know, how a player is going to respect you if you don't communicate clearly with them. I don't see him ever, you see so many videos and pictures of training these days and behind the scenes, and you don't ever see him getting involved and properly animated, as managers do on the sidelines, but you don't see it behind the scenes. You don't see it anywhere. So you do wonder where this release is. And he comes out with excuses and says, I want to respect referees and all of that. But it's nothing about that. You don't have to, we're not asking you to hurl abuse at referees. We're asking you to be passionate about the football club and the players that you're playing with. But I agree with Obi. Obviously, I think he's way out of his depth. And I think the England job would have been an easier job to take for him than the Chelsea job. I mean,
I agree with that.
The last thing you want is a Tim Sherwood type character on the sideline. Remember, he'd be over animated, throwing his jacket on the floor to prove to the Villa fans or the Spurs fans how much he cares, and it just looked laughable, really. Dan, we've got to zone in on a couple of individual players. You just touched on Aubameyang there. Obi and Travis will tell you that I've got this kind of cut and dry, black and white. If you're 30 years old, you're finished. And these two slag me off for it. But when I see you signing Aubameyang, I just think, why? And then Koulibaly, he was like hot property for a good 5 years. Wanted him at Liverpool. And it was always, imagine how he'd look next to Van Dijk. But again, as soon as he hit 29, I was thinking his time's passed. He's not getting a big move now. And then Chelsea throw big money at him. What is he now? Is he 31 or 32 now?
31, I believe.
But the big one, Mikhailo Mudryk. Is he going to be another Lazar Markovic? Do you remember Liverpool bought Lazar Markovic? I think he's not even 30 yet, and he lives on a caravan site somewhere, but we've paid 20 million for him one day. My question to you is, how many games are you going to give him before you write him off?
Mudryk's got a while. The price tag wasn't his fault, and Chelsea overspent. That was, I feel like they overspent and they got him just so Arsenal didn't get him. And I do feel like watching Arsenal this season and seeing a glimpse of what Mudryk can do against Liverpool in that first game.
What, James Milner?
I do feel like he would have been a problem at Arsenal. Fitting into that team with Saka and a fully fit Gabriel Jesus. Even with Martinelli in there somewhere, I feel like he would have been really, really dangerous. But, like a lot of the other players, Kai Havertz still 23. I think Mudryk is 22. So I'm going to give him a season, maybe a season and a half to get his act together. But if he doesn't, then, I'm going to be thinking maybe loan move, send him elsewhere if he can't do it for a season there, by 25 years old. I think that's the cutting point if you haven't kind of made it to the level that you need to be for first team status by then. And that's where I think Chelsea's problem is. They have an issue with cutting players loose, such as Ruben Loftus-Cheek, players who always kind of seem to have the potential to make that step up, but are hampered by injuries or form or whatever it is. And for some reason, Chelsea are just opposed to letting them go. And maybe it's that same mentality of we just don't want anybody else to have it. But, you get to this point where you've got 30 players that want to play first team football and it starts to become an issue.
This 8.5-year deal is starting to look a bit crazy though, isn't it? He could end up living on this gypsy farm with Lazar Markovic taking this money every week, to be honest. But no, it's good that you've got a leveled view. Obviously, he's still young. He's come to a new country. Give him time to bed in. My question to you, if you had a cup final on Saturday, and this is a genuine question because you've got so many players, I'm a bit lost. This is the first time I've known the Arsenal team in about 10 years. It was always El Neni and Iwobi, and I used to say to Trav, I don't even know the Arsenal team. I know the Arsenal team now. I could quote it, all 11 players. I don't know the Chelsea squad anymore. I haven't got a clue. In your opinion, if you had a cup final, I know cup finals are a million miles away at the minute for Chelsea and Liverpool, might I add, who would be your starting 11?
Is this with a fully fit squad or the squad?
Yeah, fully fit. Everyone's fit.
Okay, so although both keepers are rubbish, Kepa can never be forgiven for what he did in the cup final. So Mendy's got to be in goal. Reece James and Chilwell at fullback. Thiago Silva and Badiashile centre back, right centre back, left centre back. Centre mid, I'll go with Enzo, and if he's fully fit, Kante. Although I'm tempted to say not Jorginho, so Kovacic, because I think Kovacic is one of the most underrated players in the Chelsea squad. But a fully fit Kante alongside Enzo would be a beautiful thing to watch. And then I think João Felix in a number 10. Or actually, no, I'm going to go Kai Havertz number 10, João Felix up front, Mudryk on the left, and Madueke on the right. I really like Madueke. I think he's very sharp. I think he's one of the players that hasn't got as much of an opportunity as he should have when you look at Mudryk. I think Sterling is pushing. I think he's one of those players that I think could be, if he hits a good patch of form, could be one of Chelsea's most important players, but he just hasn't really hit speed. Again, another player that's been hampered by injuries. And as you say, Scott, he's kind of approaching that, or kind of getting to that stage in his career where I don't know whether he's going to be able to cut it at Premier League level for much longer. So that'd be my 11. Fairly young, but obviously, that rise on João Felix staying as well.
Yeah, that's mad when you think about the players you've left out, like you say, Raheem Sterling, and he's only 27, isn't he? But he could be another one like Wayne Rooney, like washed by the time he's 30. I can't see it myself, and I'm guilty that I wanted Raheem Sterling back at Liverpool in the summer. I'd have had him for 50 million. I don't know if OB will agree with me, but from what I remember, OB would agree with me that we both rate Christian Pulisic highly. Is that right, OB?
Yeah, really? Yeah. I rate Pulisic. I've always rated him. Him and Havertz are two players I've admired for a long time. Particularly, I think they've got a lot of quality about them. I also think as well, Dan, I actually think you've got the best young midfielder in the world in Enzo. And I know it was a big deal. I honestly believe that the team should be being built around that linchpin because he is absolute quality. Even in the games where you've been poor this season, he shines. He shines. He just looks calm on the ball. He's still wanting the ball in tight areas. He's brave on it. You know what I mean? He's making himself available and demanding the ball in really tight areas. And the rest of the team need to be fed around him. And the boys who can work and interact best with him are the boys you should have on the pitch at the moment. That's the way I see it. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I was skeptical, obviously, about the price tag, and everybody talks about, paying a big price tag or paying a release clause after a good World Cup is never a good idea. But yeah, I mean, from minute one, he's looked like he's got a touch of class about him that no other player in that Chelsea team does. Yeah. And he seems to be able to. And the one thing that I really, really like about him and that Chelsea have lacked for so long, because they've been relying on Jorginho for so many seasons, is they needed a midfielder that can transition, can win the ball deep in defence on the edge of your penalty box and very quickly distribute it up or run with the ball. And that's what he looks like. He has the ability to beat a player. He has the ability to. I mean, his distribution is superb. That is one of my favourite things about. The only positive thing about watching Chelsea at the moment is watching Enzo Fernandez pass the ball, because his distribution is fantastic. But yeah, no, agreed. It's. I would have liked to have seen us gone in for Bellingham, but Enzo Fernandez, I think, is our midfielder. Is the one agreed that we should be building around.
Christian Pulisic, you kind of shook your head when me and Obi said we rate him. What's the story with him? Is he always injured? It feels like him and Kante come back and both put in man of the match performances against Liverpool, always against Liverpool, and then disappear for 3 months. What is the story with him?
Yeah, Pulisic, he's not one that I when he first came to Chelsea, he looked like he was a player that could replicate, not necessarily replicate, but in terms of what Hazard did when he was direct and went at a player and, he took on 3 players. That was what Pulisic looked like he could do. He had his low center of gravity. He looked like he could, very, very agile, very good dribbling. But he got injured, I think, a few months after he started. And he just never really looked the same. He looked scared to go into a tackle after that. And yeah, he's just been hampered by injuries. But even when he hasn't, he's been kind of on the fringes of the squad when he's got opportunities, hasn't really been able to put in performances. The only real good season I remember him, or particularly good season I remember him having in a Chelsea shirt, was the season that was played. I don't remember the number, but was the season that was played behind closed doors when there was no fans. So I don't know whether it's something to do with the pressure or the atmosphere in the Premier League that he's not used to. But unfortunately, he seems to be, and he's the poster boy for FIFA. The people that states think that he is God's greatest gift. They compare him over there. I've seen videos of them comparing him to Messi and Ronaldo, and it is crazy the just obscured view that they have of that Todd Bowley is feeding these players. I'm not necessarily sold on him. I think obviously 50 million was I'd say large price tag, but when you look at it in today's market, it's fairly average for a young winger. But I'd say if we can cash in on that, 30, 40 million, I'd say take the loss and recuperate it.
Still got Cucurella as well.
Yeah, Cucurella. I was just about to say, like all the players that you've not even mentioned, like Aubameyang, Cucurella, Pulisic, Sterling, Lukaku. Who can forget Lukaku? He's coming back, isn't he?
Yeah, well, I think Inter want to, depending on their financial situation, I hope they take him back because, I'd be interested to see him at Chelsea. So, maybe give him a pre-season, see what he's like. But, that's not really a good enough indicator. And with the transfer window, you don't want to risk kind of him dropping 3 stinkers in the Premier League and not being able to get a move. So, I think it's one of those where, if we can get 60, 70 mil for him again, take your loss. We're not going to get 90 mil back for him. That was a silly amount of money. What was it, 98 or something in the end that we paid? But he's not a player that I think. I feel like he has his heart elsewhere as well, and I feel like we only really kind of want players, want to bleed blue. I'd rather have Eden Hazard back than Romelu Lukaku. I'd take Hazard back.
There's another player that's finished. But Lukaku's nearly 30 as well. And I write off any player that's 30. So I cannot see us getting that much for Lukaku, especially from the Italian league and Inter. But time will tell. Let's finish up on Chelsea. What has got to happen to turn this round, Dan? And have you give up on top 4? You must have, surely.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. I've been asking myself this question, and I've been asking Chums this question for the last, for the best part of the last month now. And I really, without a new manager, and even with a new manager, and drastic changes in the squad, they really have to look at themselves. It is an intrinsic thing, and at the end of the day, no matter who takes the helm at that Chelsea team, they need to perform on the pitch and to perform as a unit, and the communication is not there. It's not really kind of that difficult. I'm sure we've all played football. It's not difficult to talk to your teammates on the pitch and say, come on, we're playing shit, get up the pitch, or stick it in the mixer, or even just put it in the box. Chelsea just seem to be afraid to do the little things, and sometimes you just have to revert back to the basics. Maybe that's what it is, but nothing is ever going to change if we keep on changing the first 11. We need to find a solid first team, a structure that we can rely on, whether that's including Thiago Silva or, excluding him, because at the end of the day, we've got to plan for without him. If this is a long-term project, you cannot be relying on a 38, 39-year-old centre-back as the linchpin, because if you rely on him for every game, he's going to, as we've seen at the weekend, he's going to get injured. So, Chelsea are going to have to do something drastic. But, guys, I am open to suggestions because
it all stems from the manager, though. Like, if your manager isn't a leader, you can't create leaders on the pitch. Do you know what I mean? So that you're just lacking so much leadership at the minute. Like you said, you think back to years ago when you've had your players like your Terrys and your Drogbas and that, and the characters. Like, you won't put Potter with those boys. They've had Mourinho's and do you know what I mean? Carlo Ancelotti's and stuff, and the leaders that are created from that. I love Enzo. I would like to see. I think Chelsea need a midfielder next to Enzo, which allows Enzo to be a little bit less restricted because his passing range, like you said, so good. I'd like to see him just be a box to box and just be that person that everything goes through. So, like you said, he sits quite deep. I said in front of the back four and stuff, but I would like personally to see another midfielder next to him. Like you said, fullbacks are fine. You bought young centre half. You still got Fofana as well, another one that we've not mentioned from Leicester. He is a top draw player, and he got injured. Did he snap his cruciate or something like that? I think he was out for the season, weren't he?
He's had two. He's had two really bad injuries, I think.
He is really, really good. Like, he is really good. So when you think about it, when he's fit, you got the other centre half that you bought, that Balashile, or however you pronounce his name. You've got James Chilwell. That's a decent back four when everyone's fit. Enzo in front with another player. And then you just need a top-class striker that you can rely on as well. Once you get a striker, whether Felix stays in and around in the cam as well, what you need to stop doing is playing all those players that just aren't any good for you, like your Gallaghers, your Mounts, Loftus Cheeks. They're just no good. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, ZX. They're just not good enough. Yeah. And it's like with United, similar to United. Do you know when players have been at a club for too long? It's not that they're not a good player, but they've just been stinking the place out a little bit, not getting games in and out of the team, just wanting to move, causing disruption. We've had it the same at our club, and I think you've bought a lot of players, but you also need to move players on as well sometimes to get the best out of the players that you bought in. And that's what I'm seeing with Chelsea. Like, I think there's a lot of dead wood there, what I would call dead wood. You need to shift them out. Just get a top coach in that's going to play some good football and get the fans back on side. And the results will come with it. That's what I personally see from Chelsea anyway.
Trav makes it sound simple. You feel better, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty apt analysis, pretty apt summary as well. Agreed. Not only is it the manager, but the number 9 is such an important position. Chelsea just have, since this man here, Chelsea just haven't been able to find the number 9 that will work for the team. Even before that, we've had difficulty since Drogba. I think, obviously, in the last 15 years, I can only say successful 2 strikers at Chelsea. So we need something or someone to turn that around. But I'm not, and controversially, I'm not a massive fan of all this spending money. I don't like the labels that come with it. I don't like the reputation it brings, and it gives other fans ammunition when we perform as terribly as we are doing. So I don't think it's a great decision, particularly when we are not or haven't been performing well. I think crisis spending is not the way to go about it. You invest in a team and a project that I think is, you see progress in. But there is obviously a lot of potential in Chelsea. Cobham, fantastic youth structure. Obviously a lot of very good players in there. So if there is some way of managing that team, you have got the likes of David Fofana, Broja. There are a couple of young strikers in there that could potentially fill the void. But remains to be seen. We'll probably go and do something like hijack Man United's bid for us, Simon, in the summer.
I can see that coming.
We'll go and spend another 120 mil just so you lot don't get him. It'll be stupid. And then it'll come in and drop.
Is Tammy Abraham? Yeah, and Kunki's done.
It's done deal, is it, Dan?
Done deal, yeah.
Well, that's the striker then, surely.
I don't know. Again, he's another one. Chelsea have another habit of just buying players that don't really have a fixed or specialty position, and Kunku's a fantastic player, very, very talented, but I don't know whether he's best in a number 9, a number 10, and, out wide in centre mid. He can operate in so many different positions, which is fantastic. But as we've seen with players like Mason Mount, when you don't kind of have a special fixed position and you do kind of float around, sometimes you struggle to gain traction and struggle to pick up the goals and assists that at the end of the day you need to solidify yourself in a player as an attacking team.
Absolutely. So Chelsea in the absolute mud, and the only thing that's keeping me and Obi happy at the minute that Chelsea are doing worse than us. Obi, on to Liverpool. Thankfully, I was out at a party Saturday night. So I've only seen the highlights, but from what I've read on Twitter and in our Liverpool group chat, we were absolutely diabolical. Is that the way you see it?
Highlights.
Low lights.
Oh my goodness. An absolutely turgid display. Absolutely rotten. It's like without Nunes, we've got no energy, which is really, really bizarre considering I've seen a lot of criticism of Nunes this year, but I think his energy is something that's adding to the Liverpool team.
What was up with him, Obi? Where was he?
Oh, it was a shoulder injury. So what happened was, the shoulder injury he got, he took an injection against Real Madrid, but apparently the next day he couldn't lift his arm. So therefore he was out for that reason. What's that?
What was it? Pfizer?
I don't know. But anyway. We do miss his energy. Talk about one player, Scott, and I can't not do this, but I've been on about him for a long time, but I don't understand how Naby Keita gets away with pretending to be a footballer. He is rotten, mate. He is Klopp's worst buy. I think I compared the purchase of him in one of our group chats to the purchase of George Weah's cousin. It is that bad. It's an absolute shocker.
Ali Dia.
He got hooked at half time, but for me, it was that bad. It was at the level of, you remember when they hooked Lovren after 20-something minutes at Wembley that time when we got battered by Spurs? That level of performance. The guy should not play for us again, but he probably will, and he'll probably start the next game or something stupid like that. At this point in time,
keeps happening.
We need midfielders. We need decent midfielders. Now, we've just listed, Dan's team are supposedly in the mud, right? And they're supposedly struggling, and they are below us in the league table. But ultimately, I see green shoots in that starting 11. And this is where I start to worry for us, because although if everybody's fit, we'd probably have a massive argument about who Liverpool would play up front. The reality is, in the midfield, probably going for the same midfield or somewhere close to the same midfield that started 3 years ago. And that's where the problem is. I don't even know where to start. I think he believes he now doesn't play in defence. That's the only understanding I've got for it. He's strolling back still. It's really frustrating to watch. I just don't know where we go from here. I think it's just a case of Klopp is going to have to find something different. But I don't know where he gets it from within that squad. I really don't. As for the game, nothing happened. We looked a little bit loose a couple of times at the back. We've done very little going forward. There wasn't a lot else to say. Rubbish. Waste of my Saturday night.
Trent, from what I've seen, that'll bring you in quite nice there, Dan. You are absolutely scathing of Trent, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I think he's just proves himself again and again with these defensive errors. Did it 2 or 3 times against Real Madrid. Again at Palace, he had one particular moment I remember was Jeffrey Schlupp just turning him inside out, which, and I know for a fact Crystal Palace fans hate Jeffrey Schlupp and don't want him anywhere near their team. So for him to be doing that to Trent is, not a good marker on him, but it's a difficult one because he is fantastic when he gets the ball with a bit of space and he has to distribute. He is fantastic. He has brilliant passing. So I'd love to see him transition to a CDM because I don't think he can cut it defensively. But
that's just what I was about to ask you.
Yeah.
Can we salvage his Liverpool career if we're writing him off as a fullback and move him into midfield? Obi's been saying it for months. I definitely think it's worth a shout. Can 100%. You see that happening?
100%. Well, you need reinforcements, as Obi said, in the midfield. James Milner, Jordan Henderson, and Naby Keita is not a midfield that is going to be winning you any trophies anytime soon. So you need, put Alexander-Arnold in there and buy someone, and maybe, keep Henderson or, Thiago or Bajcetic even. You've got arguably a championship winning midfield, or a midfield that can provide, progress and stability over what you have at the moment. Because it's like your rule, Scott, over 30. Two of those players already there. Is Jordan Henderson over 30? He is, isn't he?
He's nearly 33.
But
Scott always knows the age of these players to the
Jordan
absolute
Henderson,
day.
James Milner must be about 45 by now, but I mean, his passport says he's still convincing clubs to get him on contracts. But no, he's obviously a player that epitomizes the hard work, and he's one of those players that is great to have around the dressing room as well. So you wouldn't be remiss to having him on the sidelines, or maybe helping out in the cup games. But Liverpool do need, I think, investment, and whether it's maybe investing a little bit more heavily on a right back position and then moving Trent up, or really heavily investing in the midfield. They've got to do something. But I mean, do you guys, what's Trent's competition? Is it just Tsimikas? Or
he's got
Tsimikas Gomez. It's basically Joe Gomez.
Joe Gomez, and a young lad from Aberdeen, Calvin
Ramsey. Maybe he just needs a bit of competition to keep it healthy. Maybe he's just getting a bit lackadaisical, and needs someone to challenge him for his position.
I think you're right, and I've been talking about this for a long time, and the guys are getting probably sick of me saying it. But if you brought in and if he'd want to come to us, obviously, if you brought in Jude Bellingham, played him alongside Thiago, and put Trent in there, that suddenly changes the dynamic of the whole team in a very, very positive way. You've got a couple of guys who can create, but also there's a lot of energy in that midfield at that point, and people who can get themselves back into good positions as well. I like that idea. I like the idea of doing something like that. Whether that's something that Klopp will look at as and when the season starts to fizzle out, he might well do. He might put Trent in. I keep on expecting it to happen. I expect him to just pop him in and put Milner at right back, and us all go, well, what the hell happened there? But he seems unwilling to do it. And I don't know if it's because he's so stuck on Trent being a right back and what he creates from right back and what he's traditionally created from right back. But what you've got to remember is that when Trent was at his absolute peak, he had guys covering ridiculous distances to cover his work defensively. So you had Wijnaldum when he was really putting it in, and there was a massive miss in that midfield. You had Henderson, and you had Fabinho, a peak Fabinho, not a Fabinho of now, where he looks like he's not performing to the same level. It looks like he's struggling physically. So there's a massive drop off. There is something that needs to be done quite urgently. We are seeing little glimpses in games of Liverpool looking like they can open up opposition quite easily, but we didn't see any of that on Saturday night. And I referred back to that Newcastle game where we went up there and they come on to us and we were too much for them. But a lot of that's Nunez springing gaps with his pace, his physicality, and I think he's going to be a big player going forward. I do worry for us, so I do worry in the middle of the park. Unless we can land someone like Bellingham and maybe do something different with Trent, I think we're going to have these same problems next season.
Yeah, I can see it. However, Travis, me and you love a bit of back and forth on the group chat about net spend, and you're my Twitter guy. Indy Kayla says we've got 300 million to spend in the summer. Now, I don't know how we've got 300 million or where it's coming from, and I don't trust that it's true, but is it going to happen?
Yeah, go on. I think you will spend a lot this summer. Whether it's 300 million, I'm not 100% sure, but I think you will go big this summer, whether it's one player, whether it's a couple of players or whatever. Like you said, I think Bellingham's top of the list and he's going to cost plus of 100 million without a shadow of a doubt. So that's probably going to take up a big amount of your kitty. Just interested in what you were saying on Trent, actually. Was Trent a midfielder in the academy at Liverpool?
It was, yeah.
What type of midfielder was he? What type of midfielder was he?
From what I saw, and I only saw him in a few of the games because I was a bit of a saddo at the time and used to watch some of the games, he was all energy, so he was very much box to box. But he always had a good passing range. He always had a good passing range. and that's easier to adapt to somebody who Klopp clearly saw an opportunity to develop him into an offensive fullback and sort of take it to a next level. He's obviously managed to do that at a very young age and developed him in that way. But I do think that there is a point in his career where Trent's going to have to go back into midfield, and I do think for a refresh, I think it would help if it happens sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I was just touching on that point actually, because like you said, if at fullback he's struggling to like sort of trap runners and awareness of space and sort of 1v1 against defenders and not defending properly, he's not going to be a holding player. Do you know what I mean? And at the moment, Fabinho is that player who you said's finished. So it sounds like if Trent goes in there, he's going to be a box to box. If he is going to be in there, then that sort of leaves Thiago with him. Those two is like sort of your box to box, your 2 8s, and then you're buying a holding player. Then where does Bellingham fit? But like you said, you need a squad. So if you think of the names, I don't know what you think. I don't know if you think Fabinho is going to stay or not, or you want rid of him. But if you have Trent, you get Bellingham. Would you still keep Thiago then?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the only thing I would say with that is I think the most effective players this season I've seen don't necessarily have to be playing the furthest up the park. So if we play you boys, Casemiro's been your best player this season. I'll give about Rashford, but Casemiro's the most influential. At Arsenal, I think Thomas Partey is doing an amazing job. I see in the World Cup, I thought Fernandes was probably the one of the standout midfielders, if not the standout midfielder. And obviously he's gone to Chelsea. But they play in a deeper role and they control the game in a real linchpin. Now, you could adapt Bellingham to be that man quite easily. And you could ask him to hold that role in a game and dominate from that position. You really could do that. And I think that's possibly where I would see us going, provided we can land him, and that's a big.
So like Bellingham, sort of that deep lying playmaker sort of player.
Yeah, absolutely, and very much like you look at Kevin De Bruyne. People talk about his passing all the time. It's actually his work rate that impresses me most, because his range of passing is ridiculous, but he isn't sitting on the passes or admiring the passes or just wanting to do that. He does all the dirty work really, really well. He's a proper dirty, get stuck in player. And that's what a midfielder needs to be now. It's not just about having one element to your game. It's about having that ability to be lots of different things. And the very, very top end of a game and the top end of a league, there's one for every team. And if you look at that, that's probably the trend of the last sort of year or two, is that these players are so important to how these teams play football.
The thing about, like Trav just mentioned it there, like maybe try to have one eye on our midfield for next season, bringing in Bellingham, hopefully, fingers crossed. Mateus Nunes, heavily linked. Caicedo is going to move to a top 6 club. But you mentioned like Thiago, or, who would you have in there? And it's the players like Thiago, Henderson, Milner, Keita, Oxlade-Chamberlain. It's them that we just need gone, basically. Henderson will be a good squaddy, if he's only getting 15 league starts a season, and he assumes the Milner role, kind of the presence in the dressing room. But really, if we're going to get back to what we do best, it's going to be a complete midfield overhaul, and it would take every penny of 300 million, which I also don't think is even going to happen. But at the same time, I keep studying the way Arsenal play, because when a team are playing really well, obviously at the top of the league, they remind me of what we looked like a couple of years ago when we won the league. I study how they play. And if you look at Zinchenko, he doesn't even play left back. He plays in the left-hand side of a midfield, because Arsenal are so much on the front foot. And that's what Trent used to do. He'd be forming that triangle with Henderson and Salah, working down that right-hand side. But it's only now that we're not on our game. The midfield's not great. The front three, you could say, are misfiring. I know they've scored a few goals lately, Gakpo, Nunes, but that's when we're getting exposed, when Trent has got to be a proper right back. No, I'm not discrediting Zinchenko's defensive capabilities, but whenever I watch, he's not even at left back.
What's happened to Fabinho then? Fill me in, because like That is mad. I don't understand how he's dead, because he's been one of the best holding players for the last 3-4 years in the Premier League. I don't get what's gone on. What's actually going on with him then?
I watched a video. I watched a video today of his performance against Barcelona in that semi-final, and it just happened to be on Twitter. And it was, remember, this is what Fabinho's levels were. Right, so there's two parts to that. Number one, that was in 2019, so that's 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's been at that level since then, but the drop-off, I think, has been there in little parts, because earlier on in his career, he was standout. His Liverpool career, he was standout, and then he just become he had a solid game, and then suddenly it was like he's getting leggy. So I think there's a physical drop off. I think something's happening physically now. Whether he's picked up injuries and he's struggling with them, his fitness probably isn't at the same level. Certainly not covering the same distances as are the whole midfield. They're just not covering it. So I suggest it's possibly physical, but then I think it's leaned to mistakes on the pitch positionally as well. And I don't know whether that's because he doesn't trust himself or whether he doesn't think he's fit. They never tell you if they're not fit, do they? And they're playing through it. They don't tend to tell you. So I don't know what's going on, but he's certainly not the same player in distance. He's certainly not the same player in covering the defenders and making sure he's that sort of screen for them in the games. And he's missed time in a lot of tackles as well, which is really, really strange.
There was a heavy rumour about 12 months ago that him and his missus had split up. Now, I don't know if she kicked him out or she cheated on him or what, but there was rumours that he was living in a hotel in Liverpool, and that rumour was locally. But now he's just had a kid with his missus. But then there's also rumours that him and Klopp don't get on the Anfield Wrap. They said whenever you're at the match, Klopp berates him all the time, like screaming at him. So it could be that they don't get on with each other. And that could be the reason for the drop-off. His heart isn't in it, or Klopp's kind of lost the dressing room, or him at least. But there's no doubt about it. He's not the same player, and he's not even 30 yet, so it's not even like I can write him off. Dan, I've said that I would take Gallagher. We're heavily linked with Mason Mount. Did you say, Ella, you'd happily get rid of both of them?
Yeah, for 20 mil.
20 mil in today's price.
Yeah, for both of them. I will pay you if you want. Get them off the wage.
I think with Conor Gallagher, he reminds me very much of Adam Lallana type player. But I do think he looks more exposed at Chelsea, whereas in Palace, in a compact team, he looked like he was more comfortable within it. Whereas he's got to cover more distance. He's got he's got to make sure he gets the decisions right, because the team have got a lot more of the ball. He seems to be struggling a lot more, but I've always thought he was all right, and I've always rated Mount. But I have seen a drop-off in Mount over the last sort of year or two. Is there any reason behind the drop-off in Mount?
I'm not 100% sure. The only thing that I can assume or can, try and, get behind is contract talks. I know he's been umming and ahhing for a while now. There's been a lot of rumours, I don't really know what to believe. You never really know what goes on behind the scenes, but the talks are at the moment that he's not happy with the lengths of contract that they're asking, because he doesn't want to commit to 6-7 years, which, while understandable, is not, I imagine, what they want to hear from someone that I imagine is demanding. I think, Reece James is on 250 grand a week. So Mason Mount will be demanding similar money to that. He hasn't been commanding that from the performances that he's been giving us. You're right. He's dropped off over the last year, maybe 2 years. I remember conversations a few years ago when I used to be able to say, Mason Mount is on the same level as Bukayo Saka. That's gone. Mason Mount is the same level as, Calvin Phillips. That's gone. Declan Rice, that's gone. There are just all these players just seem to be surpassing him. And I'm just kind of thinking, is it time And the last few performances that he's dropped have been absolutely terrible. He's always kind of been a petty player, but recently he just seems to come on as a substitute and just start kicking people. We're 1-0 down and he's committing niggly fouls in the last third. And it's like, what's the point of, the worst ones for me are, when they got their back to the corner flag and an attacker shoves them and they go home. Mason Mount will do that. If there was a bet for Mason Mount to do that every single game or every single time he appeared, I'd lump my life savings on it. But he is a player that I just don't feel has deserved a particularly big pay rise. And if that's what is holding him back in terms of performances, then he's a player that Chelsea need to be firm with and say, we're going to cut you loose, because he's not good enough at the moment.
That wraps it up then. I don't want him. Dan says he's rubbish. But one thing I do know, Dan, he won't get 250,000 at Liverpool. Not a chance. What is he on now? Do you know?
I have no idea. I think 80k was the last I heard, but that was, that probably would have been about. Actually, he wouldn't have changed contracts since a season or so ago. So probably, still around kind of 80 grand. Reece James was only on, I think, 90 before he made the jump, and that was kind of in the last year. So I can understand why he wants, particularly after how he was a couple of seasons ago, why he wants that kind of money. But at the end of the day, it's a job. So you've got to earn your keep and put in the performances to deserve that sort of pay raise. And you say, Liverpool, it won't happen at Liverpool. I'd be surprised if it was about the money. I'd be surprised if he didn't go to a foreign club, because I don't see an English team offering him anything that Chelsea don't. We're the ones that watch him week in, week out, and if we can't justify it, then I don't see another Premier League team bowing to his wage demands. But maybe someone like a Newcastle, I think that could be an interesting destination for him if he does go. But I'm not really sure what to do with Mount at the moment. I think he's got a few more games in him before I say sell him in the summer for sure. But at the moment, on his current.
So Liverpool linked with Bellingham for a year, signed Mount. What do you think to that, Obi? Is that right up Liverpool Street? And listen, I almost forgot. Dan is the man that gave me the inside info that Jude Bellingham is a done deal to Liverpool. He knows someone that is a family friend. Is that all right to say that, Dan? We've been on more than an hour now. I don't think anyone's going to watch this far. Spill the beans.
I'll take it.
Well, it's a friend, very big Liverpool fan, but that is coincidentally, but no, he's from Birmingham. Grew up with Job and is very close family friends, and seems to be dead certain that Liverpool will be the place for.
I'll take that
in the summer.
I'll take that. That's left me on a high.
I do trust this source, which is why I do share it. But I'm praying that something changes. I'm praying that Real Madrid come in with a super bid, or that he just can't turn down, because Jude Bellingham, he's such a great player. If he does go to Liverpool, he will be a fantastic player for years to come.
Fingers crossed. Right, lads, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much on this Monday night, a Blue Monday. I should have called it a Blue Monday with Dan from the Two Blues on there. If anyone's watching that's been watching this long, don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and also check out Dan's Two Blues podcast. Great content. I watch every minute of every episode. Him and Charms publish. It's great stuff. Lads, thanks ever so much, and we'll see you on the next one. Trav, you seeing us out?
It's been a pleasure.
Nice one. Cheers, lads.
Nice one, boys.
Nice one.